Fear and love are not merely emotions, they are instruments. They are levers in the architecture of power, capable of constructing loyalty or dismantling it with equal precision. The leader who mistakes sentiment for strategy finds himself adrift, a vessel at the mercy of currents he cannot command. Love is a fragile currency, generous and seductive, but it depends on the unpredictable whims of others. Fear is a forge, harsh and unyielding, but it bends the will to obedience, shaping men as metal is shaped under flame. To seek love without the discipline of fear is to invite betrayal, for men will betray what they are fond of when passion outweighs prudence. To wield fear without justice is to court rebellion, for terror untempered becomes self-destructive. The ruler must calibrate, must understand the pulse of his people, the shadows in the corridors of his court, the ambitions whispered in private chambers. Power demands clarity, and clarity demands detachment. One cannot lead by desire alone, nor can one maintain dominion by cruelty alone. A ruler who balances both recognizes that the mind of man is swayed not by principles, but by perception. He who is loved for what he is may be abandoned when what he represents falters. He who is feared for what he can do will endure longer, for fear attaches not to personality but to consequence. Yet fear alone, if it breeds despair, corrodes the foundations of allegiance. It is a delicate equilibrium, a tension maintained by insight, vigilance, and the willingness to act before hesitation can betray him. The world is a theater where appearances matter more than truths. A leader's image must radiate strength, decisiveness, and inevitability. Those who mistake generosity for weakness are punished swiftly. Those who mistake severity for malice are often deceived. Power is a mirror held up to men's desires and anxieties, and the ruler must see what others cannot: the interplay of trust and suspicion, ambition and loyalty, courage and cowardice. He must manipulate, not for cruelty, but for survival, for in every act of leadership lies the risk of being overthrown, replaced, or forgotten. Each decision is a message, each silence a strategy, and each indulgence a potential fissure in the armor of authority. To be loved without being feared is to stand upon a ledge, reliant upon the mercy of the winds. To be feared without being loved is to build a fortress in solitude, surrounded by the resentment of those who serve. The wise ruler desires neither adoration nor terror exclusively. He desires obedience, the quiet compliance that allows the machinery of the state to function without interruption. Love can be cultivated when it serves, but it cannot be relied upon as a shield against ambition. Fear, when justly applied, secures compliance, but it must not extinguish hope entirely, for hope is the lubricant of loyalty. Human nature is the same in every era, yet the instruments of manipulation evolve. Gossip, rumor, loyalty purchased with tokens, allegiance traded for security, these remain as effective as swords and fortresses. A ruler who misjudges men's capacities for greed, envy, and ambition miscalculates his own security. Those who appear friends may be the most dangerous enemies. Those who seem distant may be the most reliable allies. Observation, subtlety, and timing define outcomes as decisively as armies on the field. One misstep in perception, one delay in action, and the edifice of authority begins to crumble, unseen at first, then with a roar that surprises even the wisest. Every action communicates beyond its surface. Acts of clemency must carry weight, lest mercy be mistaken for impotence. Acts of severity must carry fairness, lest fear become hatred. The ruler's life is measured in calculated risks, in the courage to act when inaction is safety's temptation. To vacillate is to invite insurrection. To overreach is to provoke ruin. The interplay between fear and love is the dance of survival, and every ruler is a dancer, every decision a step upon a floor slick with ambition, envy, and the unpredictable passions of men. History teaches that those who relied solely on love fell to betrayal. Those who relied solely on fear fell to rebellion. The ruler who understands this does not pretend to be loved beyond reason, nor feared beyond necessity. He measures each sentiment as he would measure supplies for a campaign, sufficient for endurance, but never indulgent. He cultivates loyalty where it benefits. He tolerates dissent where it is harmless. He crushes ambition when it threatens the throne. In every interaction lies a choice, the quiet calibration of influence, the subtle pressure of threat, the judicious reward of favor. Ultimately, leadership is neither noble nor ignoble. It is a function of consequence, of outcomes realized in the delicate architecture of obedience. The ruler's question is never moral in the abstract. It is always practical, immediate, and unforgiving. Should he seek to be loved, or should he demand fear? The truth is that both are necessary, but neither is sufficient alone. The skill lies in knowing when to wield each, when to temper one with the other, when to let both coexist in the minds of those he governs, invisible yet undeniable. The man who commands by love alone is at the mercy of fortune. The man who commands by fear alone is at the mercy of resentment. The man who commands by both masters the currents that carry nations, the invisible tides that decide the fates of men, and the silent architecture of power that endures long after individual desires fade. The choice between fear and love is never abstract. It is lived, moment by moment, in the council's whispers, the rebellions that are a heartbeat away, the loyalties bought and betrayed. The wise leader does not flinch from this reality. He knows that to lead is to confront the perpetual tension between devotion and dread, between hope and obligation. He understands that each citizen, each advisor, each soldier carries within them both the capacity to adore and the capacity to betray. To ignore this is to invite ruin. To acknowledge it is to wield inevitability. Those who desire power must therefore embrace solitude of judgment. They must be willing to act without applause, to decide without counsel, to face consequences without comfort. The machinery of the state does not pause for sentiment. Betrayal does not knock politely before it arrives. Revolt does not seek forgiveness. Only the prepared, only the calculated, only the master of both fear and love stands when others fall. To lead is to recognize that emotions are tools, not truths, that perception shapes obedience, that loyalty is contingent, and that the preservation of authority is the highest art. The ruler who forgets these truths is undone, often by those he least suspects, often at the moment when he believes himself secure. The subtlety of manipulation, the discipline of observation, the courage to act decisively, these are the pillars upon which power rests. Fear and love are not guides but instruments. They are the metal and fire from which the structure of control is forged. To hesitate, to sentimentalize, to confuse principle with expedience is to risk the collapse of all that has been built. The master sees clearly. Love cultivates allegiance, fear enforces it, and both together, wielded without hesitation, ensure dominion. And so, the ruler walks a path solitary yet inexorable, balancing the twin currents of affection and dread. Each decision echoes through the hearts of men. Each gesture reverberates in the halls of power. He is neither cruel nor benevolent in the abstract. He is necessary. He commands not because he is loved, not because he is feared, but because he understands that survival, influence, and authority are constructed upon the unyielding architecture of human nature itself. Those who fail to grasp this, those who elevate morality above consequence, find themselves swept aside by the relentless tides of ambition. In the end, the choice is stark but silent. To lead with wisdom is to balance fear and love as instruments of obedience, never allowing either to dominate entirely, always bending both toward the preservation of authority. To fail in this balance is to surrender to the chaos of men's desires, the fragility of trust, the inevitability of betrayal. The ruler who comprehends this does not merely survive, he endures. He does not merely command, he shapes the very currents of loyalty and dread, weaving them into a tapestry that endures beyond fleeting affection and transient terror. leaving behind an order that is both absolute and unseen, a dominion crafted not from sentiment, but from the cold, relentless calculus of power. The people may not understand, the advisors may envy, the soldiers may fear, and yet the state persists. It is neither loved nor hated universally, it is obeyed. And in obedience lies the quiet triumph of mastery over the unquiet passions that threaten to unravel all. In the theater of leadership, love and fear are the instruments. The stage is set, and the ruler, having embraced both as necessary tools, moves with the certainty of inevitability. He knows that power is transient yet manipulable, that loyalty is conditional yet governable, that the architecture of authority is invisible yet enduring, and that the master who wields fear and love together, tempered with judgment and executed with precision, is the master of consequence itself. No sermon, no apology, no plea, only action measured against perception, only balance maintained against chaos, only control exercised in the silence of inevitability. In this, the ruler's choice is not abstract, not moral, not emotional. It is the very calculus of survival. Fear without love destroys. Love without fear deceives. Both together, wielded with foresight, ensure that men act not by whim, but by the invisible hands that govern consequence. This is the lesson that echoes through centuries, the principle that survives every age, and the truth that any ruler who dares command must confront. The sovereign's dominion is built not on the heart's warmth nor the mind's consent, but on the measured interplay of dread and devotion, the unyielding instruments of human nature that decide who ascends, who endures, and who falls into oblivion. The master does not wait for fortune to favor him. He shapes fortune through the careful calibration of fear and love. Every action, every word, every silence is a signal, a measurement of loyalty, a test of obedience. The populace does not rise because they admire virtue. They rise when they perceive consequences, when they understand that the cost of defiance outweighs the reward of alliance. The wise ruler knows this and acts with precision, never allowing affection to blind judgment, never permitting dread to erode loyalty entirely. He observes, he calculates, he anticipates the shifting currents of ambition, desire, and envy, and he positions himself where others cannot reach, yet where their movements are forever constrained by his invisible hand. Power is a living organism, fragile in its infancy, resilient in its maturity, yet susceptible to the subtle poison of miscalculation. The ruler who underestimates envy discovers it festers where he cannot see. The ruler who misreads ambition finds betrayal nested within allegiance. To survive, one must treat men as they are, not as one wishes them to be. Fear tempers the excesses of human desire. Love cajoles the hesitant into action, and both together create a lattice upon which obedience climbs steadily, quietly, inevitably. The prudent ruler does not mistake smiles for loyalty or silence for submission. He recognizes the unseen forces that move men like pieces upon a board, and he acts to control those forces before they control him. Loyalty is a commodity measured not in sentiment, but in risk and reward. Men are neither angels nor beasts. They are instruments of their own survival, calculating, watching, waiting. Love secures allegiance temporarily, but only fear ensures it endures when circumstance tests the bonds of affection. Yet fear without hope, without promise, collapses into rebellion. To balance these is to hold the lever of destiny in one's hand, to tilt the scales of consequence so that obedience becomes instinct and betrayal a peril too costly to contemplate. The ruler who masters this balance does not rely on charm, nor on morality, nor on the ideals of his heart. He relies on the immutable truths of human nature and the inexorable logic of consequence. Every court, every council, every assembly is a theater in which perception dictates action. The ruler must be visible, yet unknowable, present, yet distant, generous, yet restrained. Each gesture signals power, each act communicates control, and each silence conceals strategy. The world does not forgive indecision, and the populace does not respect hesitation. Those who seek love without fear become puppets of ambition. Those who wield fear without love become tyrants in a vacuum, hated, isolated, and vulnerable. Only the one who combines both, who understands the subtleties of timing and the psychology of men, commands with inevitability. Ambition is both a threat and a tool. The ruler who can redirect the ambitions of others toward the stability of the state strengthens his own position, turning potential rivals into instruments of power. The ruler who fails to recognize ambition's double edge invites betrayal, for men who see opportunity will seize it, indifferent to loyalty or gratitude. Observation is paramount, calculation is indispensable, and action must be decisive, for hesitation is the gateway to upheaval. Every decision carries weight. Every misstep can unravel years of careful construction, and every act of mercy or severity must be measured against its long-term consequence, never its immediate sentiment. The balance of fear and love is a constant negotiation with reality itself. It is not a moral choice, nor a philosophical abstraction. It is the art of survival and the architecture of dominance. Those who misunderstand it are doomed to be consumed by the very forces they sought to control. Men are fickle, desires are transient, and the instruments of allegiance are delicate. The ruler must act with relentless clarity, wielding fear to command, love to guide, and both to stabilize. In this, he discovers the fundamental truth of leadership. Power is maintained not by virtue, not by sentiment, but by the invisible calculus that governs human behavior. Trust is rare, loyalty rarer, and betrayal inevitable. A ruler who closes his eyes to this will fall. A ruler who sees it, acknowledges it, and acts upon it endures. Love can inspire, fear can enforce, but only their combined, calculated application ensures the stability of authority. Every court intrigue, every whispered threat, every display of allegiance must be understood as a test, a moment in which the ruler's ability to wield both fear and love is measured. Success is not granted to those who act without comprehension. It is seized by those who perceive the inner machinery of power and manipulate it with precision. In solitude, the ruler contemplates these truths. He understands that affection is a gift easily withdrawn, that fear is a tool that must be carefully sharpened, and that loyalty is a fragile construction that demands both carrot and stick. Every decision must anticipate reaction, every gesture must anticipate perception, every act must anticipate consequence. The art of leadership is the art of foresight applied to the unchanging realities of human nature. Men will betray, desire, envy, fear, and obey, often all at once. And the ruler's responsibility is to shape these forces so that they serve his end, not theirs. The wise ruler does not dwell in sentiment. He does not confuse morality with efficacy. He sees the world as it is, a place where obedience is bought, loyalty is measured, and power is maintained through both subtlety and force. Love secures temporary allegiance. Fear enforces enduring obedience. Both are necessary, but only when wielded with insight, tempered by judgment, and calibrated to the capacity of men to endure constraint without revolt. To misjudge this is to invite collapse. To master it is to impose order upon the chaos of desire, ambition, and human frailty. Every encounter, every word, every gesture carries meaning beyond its immediate appearance. The ruler must measure the hearts and minds of men as a commander measures the terrain before battle. Misjudgment is fatal. Foresight is survival. Fear and love are not abstract principles. They are instruments, sharpened and wielded to shape behavior, to constrain ambition, and to secure obedience. A ruler who understands this does not rely on flattery, loyalty, or sentiment alone. He relies on the disciplined application of reality itself to the hearts of men. In the end, the choice between fear and love is not a moral dilemma, but a strategic necessity. Neither can exist in isolation. Both must be deployed, balanced, and maintained with relentless vigilance. The ruler who commands by love alone invites betrayal. The ruler who commands by fear alone invites rebellion. The master understands that the invisible architecture of human behavior demands both, and he wields them with the precision of a surgeon, the foresight of a general, and the patience of time itself. Obedience is the measure of power. Fear and love are its instruments, and the ruler who commands both with judgment ensures that the machinery of the state endures beyond whim, desire, and the fleeting passions of men. Authority is neither granted nor deserved. It is constructed, maintained, and defended. The ruler who recognizes this navigates the currents of ambition, envy, and loyalty with unflinching clarity. Love may inspire, fear may constrain, but both together, carefully balanced, ensure that men act not from whim, but from necessity. The one who masters this principle does not merely survive. He shapes the very structure of consequence, bending the invisible forces of human nature to his will, leaving behind an order that endures long after affection fades and terror wanes. The people may not understand, the courts may plot, and the world may shift beneath him, yet the ruler who wields fear and love with precision remains unmoved. He knows that leadership is a function of consequence, not sentiment, that power is maintained through anticipation and action, and that the mastery of men requires neither morality nor popularity, but understanding, foresight, and the disciplined, unyielding use of fear and love as instruments of obedience, survival, and dominion. Every ruler exists in the tension between what men desire and what men will endure. To lead is to navigate the currents of expectation and the undercurrents of resentment. Love may draw men to follow, yet it is fear that binds them when desire wavers. The observant leader recognizes that obedience is not a matter of affection but of consequence, and that the hearts of men are as easily swayed by hope as they are hardened by threat. He positions himself at the intersection of these forces, manipulating both to maintain stability, turning the unpredictable tides of human nature into channels of control. Each act of generosity is weighed against its potential cost, each display of severity measured against the risk of revolt, for a miscalculation is not merely a lapse in judgment, it is an opening for ambition, a window for betrayal, and a crack through which power seeps into chaos. Men serve when they see benefit, they endure when they see peril, and they rebel when they see opportunity. To misread these motivations is to misread the world itself. The ruler must be both the architect and the sentinel, designing the structures of loyalty while guarding against the erosion of trust. Fear must be present but tempered, love must be offered but measured, and both must be applied with the knowledge that neither alone can command the totality of obedience. The wise ruler learns to speak the language of consequence, to translate the silent calculations of men into a predictable pattern of action that secures his authority without exposing vulnerability. He cultivates both hope and dread in precise measures, understanding that their interplay shapes not only behavior but perception, and that perception is the medium through which control flows. Ambition is the constant adversary, yet also a tool to be harnessed. A shrewd ruler channels ambition into structures that reinforce his authority, converting potential rivals into allies or instruments of his will. Unchecked, ambition is a blade that cuts from within. Guided, it becomes the lever that moves the machinery of the state with efficiency. Every courtier, every official, every subordinate is assessed not for loyalty alone, but for their capacity to serve both as asset and as a controlled risk. A misjudged desire or overlooked grievance is not a trivial oversight. It is the seed of insurrection, the spark of betrayal, the fracture upon which chaos will strike. The ruler who understands this does not feign affection where none is warranted, nor extend fear where it is unnecessary. He calibrates both to maintain the equilibrium of authority. The machinery of power is as precise as it is unforgiving. Each decision reverberates through the ranks, influencing behavior, shaping perception, and redefining loyalty. Love may secure temporary devotion, but it is fear that ensures enduring compliance when fortunes change or temptation arises. Yet fear untempered is corrosive. It breeds resentment, and sows the seeds of rebellion. To command effectively, one must blend both fear to command attention and respect, love to inspire loyalty that survives the erosion of circumstance. The ruler's hand is measured, his gaze unrelenting, and his judgment shaped by the recognition that men are neither virtuous nor vile by nature, but instruments of circumstance, driven by self-interest, guided by consequence, and constrained only by the architecture of authority he constructs. Isolation is the ruler's constant companion, for insight demands distance. To understand the currents of ambition, the subtle shifts of loyalty, and the invisible sway of fear and love, one must observe without entanglement. Every smile must be parsed, every silence interpreted, every gesture understood within the broader calculus of power. Men conceal their intentions with practiced skill, yet a perceptive leader discerns patterns where others see only chaos. He cultivates an awareness that is both patient and relentless, anticipating moves before they are made, mitigating threats before they crystallize, and exploiting opportunities before they are recognized by others. Authority is not inherited. It is constructed through vigilance, calculation, and the disciplined application of insight. The theater of leadership is both grand and intimate. In public, the ruler must project confidence, decisiveness, and control, masking the calculations beneath a veneer of inevitability. In private, he must reconcile the contradictions of human behavior, plan the next maneuver, and consider the unseen consequences of each act. Love and fear are the twin levers upon which the edifice of authority rests. Each must be applied with strategic precision, each monitored for unintended consequence. The ruler who neglects this balance is not merely ineffective, he is vulnerable to the unpredictable, to the cunning, and to the inexorable forces of human ambition. Survival is a function of mastery, and mastery is a function of insight, foresight, and the disciplined application of both fear and love to the hearts of men. Time is the ruler's ally and his adversary. It reveals weaknesses, tests loyalty, and magnifies error. The patient application of fear and love cultivates habits of obedience, molds perception, and stabilizes authority. Yet time also exposes misjudgments, amplifies resentment, and unveils the latent ambitions of those around him. A ruler who acts with foresight mitigates these risks, yet even the most calculated strategies must be continuously adjusted to the shifting realities of circumstance. To lead is to engage in perpetual adaptation, to anticipate change, and to manipulate the immutable tendencies of human nature with unceasing vigilance. Complacency is the path to ruin. Constant evaluation is the path to endurance. Every alliance, every negotiation, every relationship is measured against the immutable standard of consequence. Men are instruments, not confidants. Loyalty is contingent, not sacred. Love is a tool, not a virtue. To rule effectively is to recognize these truths without flinching, to embrace them without moral hesitation, and to act upon them without sentimentality. Fear constrains, love guides, and both are wielded in proportion to the objective of sustained authority. The wise ruler understands that the perception of strength is as potent as strength itself, that the appearance of benevolence must be reinforced by the capacity for severity, and that the balance between these forces dictates the obedience, the allegiance, and ultimately the survival of the state. The unspoken reality is that all men are governed by self-interest, and the ruler who pretends otherwise sows the seeds of his own downfall. Love may inspire temporary devotion, but only the calculated application of fear ensures enduring compliance. Yet fear alone isolates, alienates, and incites resistance. Only when intertwined with measured benevolence does it produce a durable structure of obedience. Authority is neither given nor inherited. It is engineered through anticipation, observation, and the deliberate manipulation of human tendencies. Each act, each gesture, each decree contributes to this architecture, reinforcing the ruler's dominion while constraining the unpredictable impulses of those he governs. The ruler must act with the clarity of a strategist and the precision of a surgeon, for every misstep is amplified by the ambitions and resentments of men. To lead is to orchestrate the convergence of fear and love, so that obedience becomes instinct, loyalty endures beyond sentiment, and rebellion is suppressed not merely by strength but by design. The mastery of this balance is not a matter of morality or idealism, it is the pragmatic recognition of human nature and the disciplined execution of authority in accordance with it. Those who grasp this reality rule effectively. Those who do not are swept aside by the currents of ambition, envy, and desire that they fail to measure, control, and manipulate. The landscape of power is never static. Ambitions rise and fall, loyalties shift, and the instruments of fear and love require continuous calibration. The ruler's task is perpetual, his vigilance unceasing. He must measure not only the overt actions of men, but the subtle shifts in perception, the hidden calculations of ambition, and the silent currents of envy. Each decision must anticipate reaction, each gesture must anticipate interpretation, and each exercise of authority must anticipate consequence. To master leadership is to navigate this landscape with unflinching insight, to wield fear and love with disciplined precision, and to construct a durable architecture of obedience, capable of withstanding both time and treachery. The ruler's choice is not abstract, nor is it ethical, it is existential. To lead is to recognize that men are governed not by ideals but by consequences, not by morality but by self-interest, not by virtue but by fear and hope. Love may secure temporary allegiance, but only fear, when balanced and tempered, ensures obedience when circumstances shift. The ruler who wields both with insight transforms the volatile, unpredictable impulses of human nature into a structured, predictable force, bending ambition, desire, and loyalty to the ends of governance. Survival, authority, and dominion rest upon this understanding, and the failure to recognize it is the harbinger of inevitable collapse. Obedience is the currency of power, and fear and love are its instruments. The ruler who grasps this does not act out of sentiment, nor does he rely on morality. He acts with the precision of calculation, the foresight of strategy, and the patience of time itself. Each act of generosity is a signal, each exercise of severity a correction, and each observation a measurement of the human heart. Authority is maintained not through goodwill alone nor through intimidation alone, but through the disciplined, unyielding application of both, in exact proportion to the nature of men and the necessities of governance. Those who comprehend this navigate the currents of power with inevitability. Those who do not are swept aside, undone by the forces they fail to measure, understand, and control. The ruler's life is a continuous negotiation with reality. He balances fear and love not as ideals but as tools, shaping obedience, manipulating perception, and constraining ambition. Men may desire affection, yet they will endure constraint when the cost of defiance is clear. Love tempers fear, fear enforces love, and together they produce the architecture of authority that sustains the state beyond whim, sentiment, or the fleeting passions of men. To rule effectively is to understand these dynamics, to anticipate reaction, to calibrate action with consequence, and to wield both fear and love as instruments of enduring power. Every gesture is a signal, every word a measure, every silence a test of intent. The wise ruler understands that men are not guided by virtue but by self-interest, not by loyalty but by calculation, and not by affection but by the balance of reward and peril. To misjudge this balance is to invite insurrection. To overestimate love is to court betrayal, and to underestimate fear is to surrender authority. Thus, the ruler moves with deliberate calculation, blending benevolence and severity, displaying generosity, yet reserving the capacity for decisive retribution, and orchestrating perception so that every subject perceives both the hand that protects and the fist that punishes. Power is not inherited nor granted, it is constructed, maintained, and defended. The ruler must know the character of those around him, discerning ambition from loyalty, opportunism from devotion, and desire from restraint. Each relationship is a transaction, each alliance a strategic instrument, each act of influence a measure of control. To lead is to recognize that human nature is unchanging in its core. Men act in accordance with advantage and fear, and the ruler's task is to structure conditions so that obedience aligns with both. Generosity without calculation invites contempt. Severity without calibration invites revolt. Only in the careful orchestration of these forces does authority solidify into permanence. The theater of governance is both overt and subtle. Publicly, the ruler demonstrates decisiveness, confidence, and strength. Privately, he measures motives, anticipates schemes, and prepares contingencies. Fear communicates limits, love communicates possibility, and both must coexist in precise proportion to maintain equilibrium. The ruler who relies solely upon affection risks the erosion of obedience. The ruler who relies solely upon fear risks the alienation of his subjects. Mastery lies in the integration of both, executed with such skill that the governed perceive guidance without constraint, authority without oppression, and respect without resentment. Ambition, the ever-present adversary, must be harnessed as a tool. Those who seek power can be allies if properly contained, adversaries if underestimated, and instruments if skillfully guided. Each subordinate's desire is measured, each rival's opportunity assessed, and each potential threat neutralized or absorbed. The ruler's insight allows him to manipulate these energies, converting latent opposition into structured compliance, and transforming the chaotic currents of human aspiration into channels that reinforce authority. Failure to recognize ambition as both danger and instrument is to invite the collapse of control, for unchecked desire seeks only its own elevation, and men are ever willing to betray in pursuit of advantage. The passage of time tests the durability of control. Loyalty fades, resentment grows, and the consequences of past acts compound. The ruler must remain vigilant, observing shifts in allegiance, recalibrating instruments of influence, and anticipating challenges before they crystallize. Every act of governance is a negotiation with inevitability, every decision a calculation of risk and reward, every display of authority a signal to both friend and foe. To endure is to maintain the equilibrium of fear and love across shifting circumstances, to anticipate ambition before it becomes threat, and to command with the knowledge that power is both fragile and absolute, contingent yet relentless. Perception is the medium through which authority operates. Men obey not only because they are compelled, but because they perceive the inevitability of compliance. The ruler shapes this perception through actions both measured and deliberate, blending visible generosity with the potential for decisive correction. Those who serve understand the duality of promise and consequence. Those who oppose recognize the certainty of constraint. In this theater, fear enforces obedience where love motivates action, and love inspires allegiance where fear ensures attention. The ruler's effectiveness is measured not in sentiment but in the predictable behavior of men, and in the capacity of authority to withstand both ambition and circumstance. Isolation accompanies insight. The ruler cannot afford unguarded intimacy, for motives are concealed and intentions disguised. Observation must be unclouded, judgment unimpeded by affection, and strategy unaltered by sentiment. Every interaction is a probe, every conversation a test, and every alliance a calculation. Knowledge of human nature is the ruler's instrument, foresight is his safeguard, and the disciplined application of fear and love is his mechanism of control. To lead without understanding the full spectrum of desire, loyalty, and ambition is to abdicate responsibility and invite collapse. To lead with insight is to convert uncertainty into order, chaos into structure, and ambition into service. Men are governed by self-interest, tempered by fear, guided by hope, and constrained by consequence. The ruler who disregards this calculus relies on illusion. The ruler who masters it wields inevitability. Love secures attention, fear secures obedience, and the interplay of both shapes the fabric of governance. Generosity without strategy invites exploitation. Severity without calibration invites rebellion. Only through the precise integration of these forces does authority achieve durability, and only through unceasing vigilance does the ruler maintain supremacy over the unpredictable currents of human behavior. The ruler's life is an unbroken series of calculations, adjustments, and anticipations. Each act of benevolence signals opportunity, each act of severity communicates limits, and each observation of human behavior informs the next measure of control. Authority is neither static nor granted. It is actively constructed, continuously maintained, and endlessly defended. Those who perceive it as mere inheritance or moral right misunderstand the essence of power. Survival, obedience, and the capacity to govern are contingent upon the ruler's ability to manipulate the balance of fear and love, to anticipate the ambitions of men, and to convert the instability of desire into the permanence of structure. The true measure of leadership lies not in public acclaim, but in the silent orchestration of consequence. Men follow when it benefits them, endure when defiance is perilous, and rebel when opportunity arises. The ruler's task is to engineer conditions in which obedience aligns with self-interest, loyalty aligns with ambition, and fear tempers desire. Each relationship, each decision, each decree contributes to this architecture of power, reinforcing authority while containing the unpredictable impulses of human nature. The failure to maintain this balance is not merely a political misstep, it is a collapse of order, a triumph of chaos, and the inevitable consequence of misjudged human behavior. Fear and love are the twin levers upon which the architecture of authority rests. Fear compels action where desire fails, restrains ambition where loyalty falters, and enforces compliance when circumstances shift. Love secures allegiance, inspires devotion, and encourages initiative that serves the state. Neither alone suffices. Both must coexist in calibrated proportion, applied with foresight, precision, and awareness of consequence. The ruler who understands this converts the volatile tendencies of human nature into instruments of stability, turning ambition into service, desire into alignment, and loyalty into the predictable foundation of enduring power. The ruler's perception of human nature is his greatest weapon. Men are neither virtuous nor vile by nature. They are instruments of circumstance, driven by self-interest, guided by consequence, and constrained by the architecture of authority. To misread this is to court instability. To recognize it is to command inevitability. Each act of governance is an engagement with these realities, a manipulation of perception, and a measure of control. Authority is sustained not through sentiment or morality, but through the disciplined, unflinching orchestration of fear and love, consequence and reward, ambition and restraint. The failure to master these forces is the failure of leadership itself. Every decision is a negotiation with inevitability. Each gesture, each proclamation, each exercise of power resonates through the fabric of human behavior, shaping loyalty, suppressing dissent, and channeling ambition. The ruler who perceives this understands that love without fear is vulnerability, that fear without love is isolation, and that both must be balanced to maintain the stability of governance. The architecture of authority is not built upon ideals, but upon the immutable tendencies of men, the predictable currents of self-interest, and the disciplined manipulation of perception. Mastery of these forces ensures the endurance of power. Neglect of them invites the collapse of rule. The ruler's dominion is the product of foresight, observation, and relentless calibration. Men's actions are guided by advantage, constrained by consequence, and influenced by the perception of inevitability. Love motivates, fear constrains, and both together shape the structures of obedience and loyalty. The ruler who wields these forces with insight converts ambition into service, desire into alignment, and potential rebellion into controlled compliance. Survival, authority, and the stability of the state depend not on sentiment, morality, or ideology, but on the disciplined orchestration of these forces to produce predictable, enduring outcomes. The art of governance is the art of balancing extremes. Generosity signals opportunity, severity communicates limits, and both are applied to shape perception and influence behavior. Fear ensures compliance where affection fails. Love inspires loyalty where constraint alone would breed resentment. The ruler who masters this balance navigates the volatile landscape of ambition, desire, and loyalty with inevitability, converting the unpredictable currents of human nature into instruments of control. Failure to achieve this balance is not merely miscalculation, it is the surrender of authority to the forces of ambition, envy, and opportunity that men naturally pursue. Authority is a construct, maintained by insight and foresight, disciplined by consequence, and reinforced by the calibrated application of fear and love. Men follow when compliance aligns with self-interest, endure when defiance is perilous, and rebel when opportunity invites. The ruler's task is to design conditions in which loyalty, obedience, and ambition serve the objectives of governance, converting volatile human tendencies into the predictable architecture of power. The failure to understand and apply these principles is not moral weakness, it is political oblivion, a collapse of structure under the weight of misjudged human nature. The ruler's exercise of power is measured in outcomes, not intentions. Love secures allegiance, fear enforces compliance, and the disciplined integration of both stabilizes authority. Each decision, each gesture, each observation contributes to a network of control, shaping behavior, anticipating ambition, and mitigating dissent. The architecture of power is both fragile and absolute, contingent upon perception, disciplined action, and unyielding foresight. The ruler who masters these forces achieves enduring supremacy. The ruler who falters invites chaos, rebellion, and the inevitable dissolution of authority. Endurance in power demands vigilance without respite, calculation without hesitation, and insight without compromise. Human nature remains constant in its pursuit of advantage, its susceptibility to fear, and its responsiveness to influence. The ruler who recognizes these patterns converts them into instruments of stability, aligning desire with obligation, ambition with loyalty, and fear with compliance. Governance is thus not an exercise in morality or ideology, but in the disciplined orchestration of consequence, perception, and the immutable tendencies of men. To fail in this is to succumb to the very forces that authority seeks to contain. Power is both instrument and consequence, fear both guide and restraint, love both motivator and stabilizer. The ruler who comprehends this integrates these forces into a cohesive mechanism of governance, transforming the unpredictable energies of human behavior into the predictable architecture of authority. Each act is calculated, each relationship measured, each perception shaped to ensure obedience, loyalty, and stability. The failure to maintain this equilibrium is not merely a lapse in judgment, it is the surrender of control, the erosion of order, and the inevitable triumph of ambition unrestrained. The final measure of leadership is not applause, but perpetuity. Men obey when their advantage aligns with authority, endure when defiance is perilous, and remain loyal when fear tempers desire. The ruler orchestrates these realities with foresight, discipline, and unflinching insight, calibrating love and fear, reward and consequence, ambition and restraint. In this unbroken vigilance lies the permanence of power, the stability of governance, and the enduring imprint of authority. To govern is to confront the immutable currents of human nature, to channel them with precision, and to achieve supremacy not through virtue, but through the relentless, calculated orchestration of reality itself. Every calculation, every measured act, every display of both severity and generosity forms a lattice through which authority flows and endures. The ruler who neglects this lattice invites collapse, for men are creatures of self-interest, quick to seize advantage, and slow to honor loyalty without reinforcement. Obedience is not a gift, it is an outcome, meticulously engineered, tested, and sustained. To rule effectively, is to anticipate desire before it manifests, to temper ambition before it erupts, and to shape perception so that the governed act not merely out of compulsion, but with the conviction that compliance is both inevitable and advantageous. Fear without love hardens into resentment. Love without fear softens into weakness. The equilibrium of these forces is the ruler's art, his instrument, and ultimately the measure of his survival. Every alliance, every relationship, every connection is a potential vector for both support and subversion. The ruler observes not only deeds but intentions, not only words but silences, not only promises but omissions. The ambitious subordinate, the jealous rival, the opportunistic ally, all exist within a spectrum of utility and risk. The wise ruler converts these elements into tools, aligning ambition with service, envy with loyalty, and desire with obedience. He structures opportunity so that advantage flows through controlled channels, and he neutralizes threats before they acquire momentum. In this management of human potential, the architecture of authority becomes self-reinforcing, resilient against both chance and conspiracy. Power is sustained through perception as much as action. Men obey what they believe inevitable, revere what they perceive stable, and fear what they recognize as unyielding. Authority is communicated through gestures, decrees, and even silence. It is reinforced by consequences visible yet measured, by generosity judiciously applied, by severity discreetly exercised. The ruler's mastery lies not in domination alone, but in the orchestration of appearances, the shaping of expectations, and the anticipation of behavior. Misread this, and rebellion finds opportunity, miscalculate, and loyalty fractures. Mastery lies in the simultaneous visibility and invisibility of control, the presence of power without the burden of constant assertion, the assurance of consequence without the arrogance of display. Time itself is an adversary and a tool. Loyalty wanes, resentment accrues, and the consequences of past decisions ripple forward. The ruler who anticipates shifts, who adjusts strategies with foresight, who observes both action and reaction, ensures continuity of authority. Every act of governance is an engagement with temporality. The past informs expectation, the present enforces reality, and the future tests resilience. Endurance is achieved not by momentary dominance, but by sustained vigilance, by the consistent calibration of fear and love, reward and punishment, observation and action. To neglect the dimension of time is to court instability, for human nature does not stagnate. It adapts, exploits, and recalibrates with relentless persistence. The ruler must embrace solitude, for insight cannot coexist with intimacy untempered by caution. Observation requires detachment, judgment requires clarity, and strategy requires freedom from attachment. Every conversation is a test, every interaction a probe, every alliance a negotiation of intent. Knowledge of character, anticipation of desire, and control of perception constitute the arsenal of leadership. Misreading these elements is not simply an error, it is the surrender of control to forces as predictable as they are inexorable: ambition, self-interest, and the pursuit of advantage. Mastery converts these forces into instruments of governance, sculpting obedience, loyalty, and alignment with unerring precision. The ruler's life is a continuous balance of extremes. Generosity must be calculated, severity restrained, and every expression of power intentional. Love inspires, fear enforces, and the measured integration of both sustains authority. Men follow when compliance aligns with interest, endure when defiance invites peril, and remain loyal when ambition is channeled rather than liberated. The ruler's insight transforms the unpredictable currents of desire, envy, and self-interest into predictable structures of obedience, creating an architecture of power resilient against both chance and challenge. Those who misunderstand these dynamics mistake morality for strategy, sentiment for strength, and perception for reality. The essence of governance is anticipation, the prediction of behavior, the assessment of motive, and the orchestration of consequence. Fear is not cruelty, it is clarity. Love is not weakness, it is alignment. Authority is neither inherited nor given, it is constructed, maintained, and defended through relentless calculation. Every interaction, every gesture, every policy is an instrument in the ruler's composition, each serving to reinforce obedience, contain ambition, and shape the perception of inevitability. Neglecting even one of these dimensions invites disorder, for the governed are governed by self-interest and constrained by consequence, and only the ruler who comprehends and manipulates both achieves enduring supremacy. The ruler exists in a theater where perception is reality, and reality is crafted through insight. Generosity signals opportunity, severity communicates limits, and both are applied to construct the framework of obedience. Fear restrains, love motivates, and the deliberate interplay of both aligns human behavior with the requirements of governance. Authority is measured not in virtue but in the predictability of action, in the capacity to anticipate ambition, and in the ability to convert potential subversion into controlled compliance. The failure to maintain this equilibrium is the failure of leadership itself, for men exploit weakness, rebel against constraint, and seize advantage whenever structure falters. Survival demands mastery over human nature, insight into ambition, and the disciplined orchestration of fear and love. Loyalty is not given, it is engineered. Obedience is not assumed, it is enforced. Authority is neither static nor absolute. It is continuously constructed, defended, and reinforced through foresight and vigilance. The ruler who integrates these principles achieves stability, transforms volatility into service, and converts the chaotic energies of desire, envy, and ambition into predictable, controllable instruments. Those who fail to understand these realities are undone, not by external enemies, but by the inexorable tendencies of men left uncontained. The calculus of power is unyielding. Each decision, each display of force or generosity, each observation of motive contributes to an architecture of control. Love, fear, reward, punishment, ambition, and loyalty are all instruments in this structure, their careful balance producing stability, obedience, and the endurance of authority. Miscalculate and rebellion finds foothold. Neglect and loyalty dissipates. Misread and ambition turns destructive. The ruler's responsibility is the continuous calibration of these forces, the unrelenting observation of human nature, and the precise orchestration of perception and consequence to secure not only dominance but permanence. The ruler's mastery is measured not by moral approval but by survival, not by acclaim but by control, not by affection but by the predictability of obedience. Men follow when aligned with interest, endure when consequence dictates, and act in accordance with ambition that has been anticipated and channeled. Authority is reinforced through the disciplined integration of fear and love, the consistent application of reward and consequence, and the unceasing observation of human behavior. Those who govern without understanding these forces mistake morality for power, sentiment for stability, and perception for reality. The ruler who comprehends them achieves enduring supremacy. The ruler who does not invites collapse. The ruler's path is solitary, yet it is neither empty nor idle. It is a constant dialogue with the realities of power, the calculations of ambition, and the immutable tendencies of men. The architecture of authority, once constructed, must be maintained with vigilance, yet it is also a reflection of the ruler's foresight, discipline, and understanding of human nature. Love and fear, ambition and loyalty, reward and consequence. These are not abstract ideals, but the instruments through which stability is forged and maintained. In the end, the measure of leadership is not in applause, not in admiration, not in the moral approval of others, but in endurance. Those who follow obey because they must. Those who aspire are guided because they cannot escape, and those who resist are contained because the ruler has anticipated, shaped, and controlled every vector of action. Authority, once earned and meticulously preserved, becomes self-reinforcing. Fear tempers excess, love channels loyalty, and ambition serves rather than subverts. The choice between fear and love is not philosophical, nor is it sentimental. It is pragmatic, eternal, and unforgiving. To rely solely on love is to court weakness. To depend only on fear is to risk hatred. The master of power balances both with precision, understanding that each has its place, each has its weight, and each must be wielded according to circumstance, timing, and consequence. There is no ideal, only necessity, no virtue, only survival. And so the ruler walks the solitary path, unflinching, observant, and resolute. Every action is deliberate, every decision weighed, every perception managed. The world offers no mercy, only opportunity for those who understand its mechanics. To govern is to confront human nature unflinchingly, to orchestrate the currents of ambition and fear, and to convert the chaos of desire into the architecture of order. In this relentless, calculated engagement, the ruler achieves not greatness in morality, but greatness in mastery. The final truth is simple, stark, and eternal. Those who master the balance of fear and love, who shape perception and consequence with unerring precision, command not only men, but history itself. And in that command lies the quiet, remorseless power that endures long after the applause fades, long after loyalty is tested, and long after the fleeting passions of ambition have passed. Survival, supremacy, and the enduring imprint of authority are not granted, they are seized, maintained, and exercised with clarity, ruthlessness, and unbroken foresight. This is the calculus of leadership, the architecture of power, and the final reckoning of the ruler who understands that in the theater of men, in the machinery of states, and in the unchanging nature of humanity, only mastery ensures permanence, and only mastery reconciles fear with love, ambition with loyalty, and reality with the unyielding logic of authority.